Yo, what is up guys, Anthony here back with another Destiny Child video, and in today's Destiny Child video everyone, we're going to be overviewing the Lisa's upcoming schedule calendar here on the Destiny Child Moot page. Now I haven't overviewed the most recent events that were added to the calendar, so we'll be overviewing one of them today, which will be the Seth Ragna Break. Now if we do scroll down a bit, as you can see, we do have the Methuselah World Boss Trial and the Second Chance Narrative Dungeon, which we are currently going through right now. And after the Ophowace Narrative Dungeon, we will be receiving the Ragna Break featuring Seth. Of course, this is the Childhood's End Ragna Break event. So as you can see, we do have it here featuring the light type boss Seth, and we also do have the Ragna Break side event, of course being the one shot one kill event and the ace deck for Ragna Break. Now after the Seth Ragna Break, we do have the Mirkala World Boss Trial, which will feature a dark type unit, and this will begin on May 6th after the maintenance up until May 20th. And of course will feature the side events Ace Deck for World Boss and World Boss Damage event. But in today's video, like I did say early on, we're going to be overviewing the expectations for the Childhood's End Ragna Break and see what we will potentially be receiving with the Seth event. So without any further ado, let's head on to the Destiny Child Japan blog and check out what they did receive for the Seth Ragna Break. Alright everyone, here we are on the Japanese side of the game, of course the blog for where they post their update notes. Now we do have the Season 17 Ragna Break event, Childhood's End here. As you can see, Seth is featured up on the graphic here. So of course Seth will be the event character you can obtain throughout his Ragna Break. So you will be able to uncap your Seth to +3 throughout this event, so of course make sure you do so when this event is released. Now as you can see, the Japanese side of the game did receive this event on September 29th 2020, so not too long ago, as we're finally receiving it now. First up here everyone, into the update note, we do have the graphic featuring Seth in his Before Awakening costume. So there he is on the screen right now, and this is how you will summon him in game after the 5-star animation does pop up. Of course, we do have the Seth Skillset here, which we'll be overviewing on the Japanese Rice Mine just after overviewing this update note. But what we can gather from this graphic is that he of course is a 5-star light type debuffer character, so something to keep in mind as we do have a new light type debuffer coming in our next event. Next up here, we do have the drive skill for Seth, so let's check it out here right now. And there is the drive skill for Seth. Overall a very cool looking one. I do like how it fits his theme and his character art style, more of a dark drive skill, so a very cool one, and I do like it a ton. Next up here, we of course do have the equip set that we'll receive throughout the Ragna Break event. Of course, a Ragna Break event does bring alongside a new sets of equipment, so we will be receiving a new accessory, weapon, and armor piece. As for the spa skin for Seth, we do have it featured up here on the screen right now, so you guys can check it out here. As for the boss characters for the events, we do have them featured up here on the screen right now. For levels 1 throughout 10, we do have 4-star Ishtar. Level 11 throughout 20, we do have Gunslinger Hilder. For levels 21 throughout 30, we do have Math That. And for 31 throughout 39, we do have the Unawakened Seth. And for level 40, of course, we do have the awakened version of Seth here. Now for the characters that we'll be receiving alongside the Seth Ragna Break, we of course do have a new 5-star Artemis here, so a very exciting unit coming to the global version soon, as we do have a 5-star version of Artemis arriving soon. So there she is featured on the graphic. Of course, you will expect to have her guaranteed upon summoning be brought to the global side, so do make sure you save up some crystals for her if you would like to summon up a new 5-star dark type attacker. Of course, we did just receive Ophowace, but Artemis will be much more sided towards the Ragna Break and event side of the game, and she will also have some use in PvP depending on her kit. Now we could expect to see some buffs to Artemis as well, as we did see a ton of buffs to the most recent raid child in Vairupa, so we could expect to see a buff on Artemis's kit somewhere, specifically in the tap skill department probably. So a huge unit coming, as she will be an amazing raid type unit and probably one of the fan favorites during this event, as quite a few are looking forward to her. Next up here, we do have an additional unit arriving with the Seth Childhood and Ragna Break as well. We do have the newest 5-star dark type supporter being Semele. Now there she is featured up on the graphic right now. Of course, you could expect to have a guaranteed upon summoning for this unit as well, and we'll check out her kit as well as Artemis in just a few minutes from now. As for Artemis, there she is featured up on the screen right now, and directly below we do have Semele here. Next up here, we do have the drive skills for each of the new units. Now let's start out with Artemis here and check it out right now. So there were the drive skills for our newest dark type supporter and dark type attacker character, of course being Artemis and Semele. Now make sure to let me know in the comments section below what you do think of the drive skills for each of these new characters, of course including Seth as well. Next up here, we do have a new soul card featuring Artemis. So there she is featured on the Prism and of course the normal version of these soul cards. Now I'm not sure how this will buff your units, but probably could expect this to buff the attacker in some way. Alright everyone, so that is it for the Japanese update note for the Childhoods and Ragna Break event. Now we'll be heading on to the Rice Mine Japan. As you can see, we already do have the skill set brought up here for Seth, and we also can see his live 2D animation on the left hand side. So let's start out with Seth, and then we'll head into Artemis and Semele to end it off. Now first of all, we do have the attributes, of course being a light type debuffer, the 5-star unit. As for the tiers here, currently on the Japan side of the game, so of course take into account that the Japanese side of the game does have units that the global version does not have. Now as for the tiers, of course all subject to change for when he does port over to the global version. We do have PvE here, a tier 7, PvP tier 8, Raid tier 6, and World Boss tier 8. Now overall he does seem to be pretty good for the PvP and World Boss side of the game based on his rankings, but nothing too game breaking comparing him to the other units on the Japanese side of the game. But let's overview his skill set and see if he could be very good on the global side. Now we do have the auto attack here, dealing 102 damage to the target. Tap skill here, 398 damage to priority any debuffed enemy. We also do have plus 30% debuff extension, so he does extend debuffs on the tap skill, so a very scary looking tap skill at first glance, as we do have the 30% debuff extension, so he could be pretty interesting on a debuffer team. Next up here, we do have for 8 seconds to any debuff enemies, so a pretty decent duration here on the tap skill, so I do like it a ton. Of course he is a debuffer, and he specifically excels in extending debuffs on your enemy for his tap skill specifically. As for the slide skill here, we do have 690 damage 2 times to priority highest HP enemy, so he will target the more tanky units on the enemy roster. We also do have 25% damage link, converts a certain amount of damage done to the enemy and deals it to 2 lowest HP enemies for 12 seconds to priority highest HP enemy. So pretty unique here on the slide skill, as I don't believe any other unit does have this on the global version right now. So a 25% damage link, pretty interesting to see here on the slide skill, and it could definitely have some use in PvP. As for the last portion of his slide skill, we do have 70% target, changes skill attack priority towards the targeted enemy for 12 seconds to priority highest HP enemy. Now overall, what we can see based on his kit so far, he does tend to prioritize the highest HP enemy on the opposing roster, so he will be targeting the more tanky units. And we also do have the tap skill here, of course, extending debuffs. As for the drive skill, we do have 2066 damage to 3 priority lowest HP enemy, and we also do have 600 buff explosion, remove 1 buff from the enemy and deal damage to 3 any buffed enemy. As for the leader skill here, we do have plus 15% debuff extension, extend duration of debuffs to all dark type enemies. So overall, a very nice debuffer unit here in Seth. I do like him a ton for the world boss and PvP side of the game. Of course, his skill set does show why he is ranked pretty high in the world boss and PvP category. Specifically world boss, he'll do very nice in the tap skill and leader department, as he does extend debuffs to those dark type enemies, and you could just spam his tap over and over for the debuff extension in world boss trials. As for PvP, I do like the damage link and of course the debuff extension on the tap skill. So this unit does seem to be pretty amazing if he does port over to the global side with the same skill set as he does have currently on the Japanese side of the game, and he could be very useful for the Merkala World Boss trial, which will be featured right after his event. Next up here everyone, we do have Moonlight Artemis, the dark type 5-star attacker. As for her tiers here on the Japanese side of the game, we do have PvE tier 8, PvP tier 8, Raid tier 10, and World Boss tier 9. Now across the board, Moonlight Artemis does seem to be very top tier in all areas of the game. You can run her in PvP if you'd like, and she'll do well. PvE, she'll do well also, and of course she is top tier in Ragna Break and very top tier in World Boss as well. So overall, an amazing dark type attacker, as you can see based on her tiers for the Japanese side of the game. As for the auto attack, we do have 114 damage to the target. Tap skill here, 497 damage 3 times to priority any debuffed enemy, 500 ignore defense damage 3 times to priority any debuffed enemy, 350 additional damage 3 times to light type enemy, and we also do have 1000 magic damage, deals additional damage, increased critical damage to light type enemy, raid only. So overall, a very damage heavy tap skill here. As you can see, she does prioritize debuffed enemies on the first portion as well as second portion, and of course for the third portion she does prioritize those light type enemies, which you'll be using her against Seth. And she also does have additional 1000 magic damage to light type enemy, raid only. So do keep in mind, we could also see a buff in Artemis, as we did see for Vairupa during the Laufey Ragna Break. So she could potentially become even better than we do currently have on the Japanese side. Next up here for the slide skill, we do have 986 damage to 3 priority light type enemies, and we also do have 1000 magic damage to 3 priority light type enemies. As for the drive skill here, we do have 2657 damage to 5 enemies, plus 100% berserk, increased damage and oncoming attacks and debuffs after the duration, become stunned for 5 seconds, for 20 seconds to self. So a pretty nice drive skill here, as she does have the 100% berserk, so she does increase damage and oncoming attacks and debuffs, but after the duration, of course, there's a downside. She does become stunned for 5 seconds, for 20 seconds to self, but overall does seem to be a very strong drive skill for events. As for the leader buff here, we do have plus 15% weak point attack, increased damage of weak point attacks to all dark type allies. So overall, an amazing dark type attacker. As you can see throughout her kit, she is very damage heavy, so she will hit the Seth Ragna Break very hard, and she will be very useful for world boss as well, as I do like the leader skill, and she does have a nice tap skill here, as she does prioritize the debuffed enemy and of course light type as well. Now she does have some exclusive raid options only, of course to be expected from an attacker that is introduced during a Ragna Break, but of course she is still very useful in other areas of the game outside of the raid portion. Alright everyone, last but not least here we do have Semele here, of course being our newest dark type 5-star supporter unit. As for her tiers on the Japanese side of the game right now, we do have PvE tier 7, PvP tier 7, Raid tier 9, and World Boss tier 9. So based on Semele's ratings, you could expect her to do very well in the Ragna Break side of course, and she will do significantly well in the World Boss portion as well. As for the auto attack, we do have 101 damage to the target, tap skill here, 395 damage to the target, and she also does have a 60% debuff removal, remove one harmful effect to any debuffed allies. As for the slide skill here, 719 damage to 2 random enemies, 70% cheer, increase weak point damage based on the number of cheers stacks for 16 seconds to 2 highest attack dark allies. We also do have plus 43% normal skill damage for 16 seconds to 2 highest attack dark type allies. And last but not least here, we do have 15% vampirism, converts some damage dealt by your attack into HP for 16 seconds to 3 lowest HP allies, raid only. So overall, an amazing kit for a dark type supporter unit so far throughout her tap and slide skill, as we do have the debuff removal on the tap, we also do have the cheer, normal skill damage buff, and vampirism on the slide skill. So she could replace newbie Mona for the event, as she does have the vampirism for your units, and she does buff your dark type allies, of course being Artemis or any other dark type attacker you'll be using for the event, as well as removes debuff on the tap skill. So based on your uncaps, you may want to implement Semele onto your team, possibly over newbie Mona. As for the drive skill here, we do have 1860 damage to 3 random enemies, plus 100% debuff immunity, remove all debuffs instantly for 1 hit, or 14 seconds to 5 random allies. So of course more debuff removal here on the drive skill. We also do have the leader skill, of course being a strong side of her kit, plus 15% normal skill damage to all dark type allies, and we also do have plus 20% normal skill damage to all dark type allies, raid only. Now overall, an amazing kit for a Ragna Break supporter unit, and of course she'll do well in the World Boss portion as well. So something to look forward to, as she'll be very helpful for the childhood's end event. Alright everyone, before we do end off this video, let's do check out the live 2D animations for each of the new units that'll be introduced with the childhood's end Ragna Break. Now first up here, we do have Seth in his Before Awakening costume, so let's do check it out now. So there he is, and next up here we do have Seth in his After Awakening costume. And as for the Hot Spring costume for Seth, there it is on the screen right now. As for Artemis, here she is in her Before Awakening costume. And here is Artemis in her After Awakening costume. As for the spa costume for Artemis, there it is up on the screen right now. As for Semele everyone, here she is in her Before Awakening costume. And here is Semele in her After Awakening costume. And last but not least here, we do have Semele in her spa costume. Alright everyone, so that'll do it for today's Destiny Child video, and of course our overview on the Childhood's End Ragna Break expectations for the global side of the game. So make sure to let me know in the comments section below what you do think of the event. I know it was a longer video than I expected to record, but of course hopefully the timestamps did help you guys out if you did want to skip throughout the video, as I know it was a longer one for the event overview slash preview. But of course, if you did enjoy today's Destiny Child video, make sure to leave a like on this one, and of course if you haven't yet done so already, make sure to to subscribe to the channel if you are enjoying the Destiny Child content, and of course would like to be notified for the upcoming events preview for Mirkala's World Boss. Now with all of that being said, I'll see you all in the next Destiny Child video. As always, thank you all so much for watching.